The massive crystal displays aboard the Concordat Frontier Station lit up with urgent alerts, their usual soft blue glow turning to a harsh red. Admiral Gray's fins twitched with irritation as he glided across the command center's polished floor. The other officers, all members of the highly evolved Concordat species, moved aside respectfully, their scaled bodies reflecting the emergency lights. "Report," Admiral Gray commanded, his translator converting his natural clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. The young officer at the sensor station straightened his spine, causing his ceremonial fins to rise in a show of respect. "Unknown vessel has entered Sector 7. Sir, it's massive." The officer's fins quivered. "We've never seen anything like it." The main display shifted to show a dark, angular shape moving steadily through space. Unlike the graceful, crystalline designs of Concordat ships, this vessel was built like a weapon, all sharp angles and thick armor, with what appeared to be hundreds of weapon ports dotting its hull. "Magnification," Gray ordered. The image zoomed in, revealing more details of the mysterious ship. Its hull bore markings in an unknown script, but one symbol stood out, a stylized representation of a blue and green planet surrounded by stars. "Sir," another officer called out, her voice trembling slightly. "We're receiving an identification signal. It claims to be a human vessel." The command center fell silent. Everyone had heard rumors about humans. They were a new species that had appeared on the galactic stage just a few years ago, but information about them was scarce. The Concordat Intelligence Service had dismissed them as a minor race from an unremarkable part of space. "Designation?" Gray asked, his professional calm masking his growing concern. "They identify as Hess's Retribution, a battleship." The officer paused, double-checking her readings. "Sir, their power signatures are off the scale. The vessel appears to be powered by controlled fusion reactions." Gray's fins flattened against his head, a sign of deep worry among his kind. Fusion power was theoretical at best, considered too unstable for practical use. Yet these humans had apparently mastered it. The situation became clearer when another officer rushed in, carrying a priority message from Central Command. "Sir, the vessel's arrival. It's connected to the diplomatic incident from 3 days ago. The small ship we detained for violating quarantine protocols. It was apparently a human diplomatic vessel." Gray felt his blood run cold. The quarantine had been a cover story. In reality, the Concordat had detained the small vessel because of its unusual technology. The ship's power systems and materials were unlike anything they'd seen before. The research division had been eager to study it. "Open a channel to the human vessel," Gray ordered. Before his communications officer could comply, the main screen flickered to life on its own. The aliens gathered in the command center found themselves staring at a human face, a sight few of them had ever seen before. The human was looking directly at them, its alien features set in what they would later learn was an expression of controlled anger. It spoke in perfect galactic common. "This is Captain Stone of the HSS Retribution. You are holding a diplomatic vessel and its crew in violation of multiple interstellar conventions. Return them immediately, or we will be forced to take action." The casual way the human had bypassed their communication security was not lost on Gray. Neither was the fact that this single ship had entered their space without being detected until it was well past their outer defense perimeter. One of Gray's junior officers, still confident in the Concordat's technological superiority, spoke up. "You dare threaten the Concordat? Your single ship against our entire defense fleet." Captain Stone's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes made Gray's survival instincts scream in warning. "This is not a threat," Stone replied calmly. "This is a courtesy notice. You have 1 standard hour to return our people. Choose wisely." The communication cut off as easily as it had begun. Gray looked at the massive human battleship on his display screens, its dark hull seeming to absorb the light from nearby stars. In all his years of service, he had never seen a ship designed quite like this. built not for show or speed, but for war, real war. He had a feeling the Concordat was about to learn some very difficult lessons about this new species called humans. The Concordat High Command's response arrived within minutes of Captain Stone's ultimatum. Admiral Gray read the message twice, his fins drooping lower with each word. The orders were clear: do not give in to the human demands. Instead, they were to disable the lone battleship and add it to their collection of technological prizes. In the 30 minutes since the Retribution's arrival, 17 Concordat warships had moved into attack positions. Their crystalline hulls sparkled in the starlight, a sharp contrast to the human vessel's dark, predatory form. "Sir," one of Gray's officers reported, "our analysis of their weapon ports is complete. They appear to use primitive projectile-based systems. No energy weapons detected." Gray wasn't convinced. Something about the human ship's design spoke of experience, the kind that only came from real combat. The Concordat hadn't fought a real war in over 3 centuries. Their battles were usually quick shows of force against less advanced species. On the bridge of the HSS Retribution, Captain Stone watched the alien fleet's deployment with practiced eyes. Behind him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements showing none of the tension that filled the air. "They're using a standard encirclement pattern," his tactical officer reported, "similar to the Arcturus defense playbook, circa 2150. Pretty outdated by our standards." Stone nodded. Humanity had abandoned such rigid tactical doctrines decades ago, after the machine war taught them the hard way about the importance of flexibility in combat. "Status of our diplomatic vessel: still in their research facility, Captain. Life signs stable. They've been trying to crack our encryption systems." A small smile crossed the officer's face. "Not having much luck." The Concordat's response to their ultimatum came with 15 minutes to spare. Admiral Gray's image appeared on the Retribution's main screen. "Human vessel, you are in violation of Concordat space. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning." Stone's expression remained neutral, but his eyes hardened. "Admiral, I see you've made your choice. Please note that what happens next will be recorded in detail. Future diplomatic relations will benefit from this documentation." Before Gray could respond, Stone ended the transmission. He took a moment to straighten his uniform jacket, an old habit from his academy days. Combat stations. Load the demonstration package. Throughout the massive battleship, warning lights shifted from yellow to red. Weapon systems that had appeared dormant to Concordat scans hummed to life. The ship's outer hull, which had seemed solid and primitive, began to shift as layers of adaptive armor plates realigned themselves. In the Concordat command center, alarms began to blare. "Sir," an officer shouted, "the human ship, it's changing." Gray rushed to the sensor displays. The readings made no sense. The vessel's hull was transforming, revealing weapon systems that hadn't been there before. Power signatures that dwarfed anything they detected earlier began to appear. "All ships, open fire," Gray ordered. He knew he had to strike first, to maintain some control over this situation. The Concordat fleet released a devastating barrage of energy weapons. Beams of concentrated plasma and quantum disruptors lanced out toward the Retribution. For a moment, Gray felt a surge of satisfaction. No single ship could withstand such firepower. But the human vessel didn't try to evade. Instead, its hull began to glow with a strange, rippling light. The energy beams struck this field and simply vanished. Adaptive shield matrices operating at optimal levels, the Retribution's defense officer reported calmly. "Their weapon frequencies have been analyzed and countered." Stone nodded. "Return fire. Target their weapon systems only. Minimal force." What happened next would be studied in Concordat military academies for generations. The human ship's response was precise, measured, and absolutely devastating. Rather than energy weapons, it launched what appeared to be small projectiles. The Concordat's energy shields, designed to stop plasma and laser fire, proved useless against these physical rounds. Within seconds, weapon systems across 3 Concordat ships went dark. The projectiles had somehow passed through their shields and armor, hitting exactly what they aimed for with surgical precision. Admiral Gray watched in stunned silence as his fleet's supposed superiority evaporated. The humans hadn't just matched Concordat technology. They had gone in a completely different direction, developing solutions his people had never even considered. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the human vessel is hailing us again." Captain Stone's face appeared on the Concordat command screens again. This time, there was no trace of the earlier restraint in his expression. "Admiral Gray, I trust we've made our capabilities clear. Release our diplomatic vessel, and we can end this without further damage to your fleet." Gray's fins trembled with a mixture of fear and fascination. The human ship had disabled 3 of his vessels without causing a single casualty. A display of precision that shouldn't have been possible at these combat ranges. But before he could respond, an emergency transmission cut through all channels. The Concordat Science Division had made a critical error. While attempting to breach the human diplomatic vessel's security systems, they had triggered some kind of defensive protocol. On the Retribution's bridge, alarms flashed as new data poured in. "Captain," a sensor officer called out, "energy spike detected in our diplomatic ship. They've activated its emergency protocols. Core breach imminent." Stone's expression darkened. Every human vessel carried a self-destruct system designed to prevent their technology from falling into hostile hands. The Science Division's tampering had started a chain reaction that could destroy half the station. "All hands, battle stations," Stone ordered, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Prep for emergency rescue operation. Load breaching pods." The Retribution's hull split open in new places, revealing rows of sleek pods along its flanks. Inside each pod, teams of human Marines in powered combat armor prepared for boarding action. Their suits, designed for the extreme conditions of space warfare, made them look more like machines than living beings. Admiral Gray watched in horror as his sensor officers reported the rising energy levels from the diplomatic vessel. "It's going to destroy the entire research wing. We need to evacuate." "Belay that order, Admiral." Stone's voice cut through the panic. "Your evacuation protocols will take too long. Stand down your forces and give us direct access to the station. We can handle this." Gray hesitated only for a moment. The lives of thousands of Concordat personnel hung in the balance. "Access granted. But if this is a trick..." "This isn't a trick, Admiral. This is what humans do. We clean up messes, even ones we didn't make." The Retribution moved with startling speed for a vessel its size. The massive battleship closed the distance to the station in seconds, its advanced drive systems leaving trails of blue fire in space. The breaching pods launched simultaneously, each one targeting a specific point on the station's hull. Inside the research wing, Concordat scientists scrambled to contain the diplomatic vessel's meltdown. Their best efforts barely slowed the cascade of failing systems. Energy readings continued to climb toward critical levels. The station's walls suddenly echoed with sharp, precise explosions. Human Marines burst through the newly created holes, their powered armor letting them move in ways that seemed to defy gravity. They split into teams with practiced efficiency, heading straight for the diplomatic vessel. "Clear the area," the Marine commander ordered through external speakers. The Concordat personnel, faced with these intimidating armored figures, quickly complied. The Marines surrounded the diplomatic vessel, deploying portable containment fields. 2 specialists immediately began working on the ship's systems, their augmented suits letting them interface directly with the failing technology. "Core containment at 20% and falling," one specialist reported. "Standard protocols aren't working. They really messed up the security systems." The Marine commander made a quick decision. Plan B, deploy the field inverters. The Marines worked with impressive coordination, setting up devices around the diplomatic vessel. The devices activated simultaneously, creating a bubble of distorted space-time that isolated the ship from the rest of the station. Containment field stable, the specialist reported. Beginning emergency core shutdown. Admiral Gray watched the entire operation through the station's security feeds. The humans had done in minutes what his best engineers had said would be impossible. Their technology, their tactics, and their sheer competence forced him to reevaluate everything he thought he knew about this species. On the Retribution's bridge, Captain Stone allowed himself a small smile as the situation reports came in. The diplomatic vessel was secured, its core safely contained, and not a single life had been lost. Now came the interesting part, explaining to the Concordat exactly why trying to steal human technology was a monumentally bad idea. In the aftermath of the rescue operation, Admiral Gray found himself in an unusual situation. The human Marines had not withdrawn after securing their diplomatic vessel. Instead, they had established a secure zone within the station, their powered armor suits standing guard while engineering teams worked to stabilize the damaged systems. The Admiral watched as Captain Stone stepped through the airlock, accompanied by 2 Marines. Unlike his armored soldiers, Stone wore only his standard uniform. It was a show of confidence that wasn't lost on Gray. "Walk with me, Admiral," Stone said, gesturing down the corridor. "I think it's time we had a proper talk about humans." As they walked, Gray couldn't help but notice how comfortable Stone seemed in the station's artificial gravity, which was set to Concordat standard, significantly lighter than Earth normal. "Your people move well in our gravity," he observed. Stone nodded. "We train for everything. When you evolve on a death world, you learn not to take chances." Death world. Gray's fins twitched with interest. "Surely you exaggerate. Earth's gravity is 1.4 times your standard. Our atmosphere is a mix of gases that would be toxic to most species. We have extreme temperature variations, regular natural disasters, and wildlife that would give your soldiers nightmares." Stone paused, looking out a viewport at the Retribution. Everything about us was shaped by survival. They reached a section of the station where human engineers were repairing damage from the earlier crisis. Their tools and methods were unlike anything Gray had seen before. Instead of the crystal-based technology the Concordat favored, they used devices that seemed to manipulate matter itself. "Your technology," Gray said, "it's not just different. It's as if you took a completely different path of development." "We had to," Stone replied. "Earth forced us to think differently. When we first started exploring space, we thought we'd find worlds like ours. Instead, we found that we were the outliers. Our ships aren't just weapons platforms. They're survival systems designed to keep humans alive in environments that should kill us." A group of Concordat scientists passed by, their movements nervous and hurried. One of them was carrying data readings from the human diplomatic vessel. Stone noticed their anxious glances. "They won't find what they're looking for," he said quietly. "Our technology isn't just advanced. It's fundamentally different because we asked different questions. While your people were perfecting energy weapons, we were finding ways to bypass them entirely. While you were building bigger shields, we were developing ways to make them irrelevant." Gray stopped walking, turning to face the human captain. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand what happened here today. That diplomatic vessel you tried to crack open, it was just a basic courier ship. The Retribution." Stone gestured toward his ship. "It's not even our most advanced vessel. It's just the one we use for first contact scenarios." The implications hit Gray like a physical blow. If this was what humans sent for first contact, what did they keep in reserve? How many other ships like the Retribution were out there? "Our report said your species only achieved faster than light travel recently," Gray said, his voice uncertain. Stone smiled, but there was no humor in it. "No, you discovered us recently. We've been watching, learning, and preparing. Earth taught us to always be ready. When you live on a planet that tries to kill you daily, you develop a certain mindset." They reached a viewing gallery where they could see both the station and the Retribution. The human ship's dark hull seemed to absorb the light from nearby stars, its surface rippling slightly as its adaptive armor shifted and adjusted. "The Concordat has never lost a war," Gray said, but his voice lacked conviction. "That's because you've never fought a species from a death world before. We don't want war, Admiral. But if you force one, you need to understand what you're dealing with. Humans don't just survive. We adapt, we overcome, and we win. It's literally in our DNA." As if to emphasize his point, a squadron of human fighters launched from the Retribution, beginning a patrol pattern around the station. Their design was as alien as their mothership, all sharp angles and contained power, built for warfare in a way the Concordat had never considered necessary. The relative calm following Captain Stone's revelation was shattered by sudden alarms throughout the station. Admiral Gray's communication device buzzed with urgent priority messages. His fins drew flat against his head as he read them. "Your people never give up easily, do they?" Stone asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. The tactical display showed multiple Concordat battle groups dropping out of faster-than-light travel around the station. "The High Command has deployed the entire sector fleet," Gray admitted. 47 capital ships, with support vessels. He looked at the human captain. "They won't accept your superiority without proof." Stone's expression hardened. "Then we'll give them proof." He tapped his communications device. "Retribution. Execute Protocol Thunder." The human battleship's response was immediate and stunning. Its hull began to shift and change, entire sections reconfiguring themselves. What had appeared to be solid armor plates split and reformed, revealing weapons systems that had been completely hidden from Concordat scans. "You see, Admiral," Stone said as they watched through the viewport, "humans learned long ago not to show all our capabilities at once. We prefer to let others underestimate us." The incoming Concordat fleet arranged itself in an attack formation that would have overwhelmed any normal opponent. Energy weapons charged, shields synchronized, and targeting systems locked onto the lone human vessel. "Last chance, human ship," the Concordat fleet commander's message boomed across all channels. "Surrender now." Stone's response was to key a different communication channel. "All fighter squadrons, execute attack pattern Delta. Retribution moving to position 2. What happened next would be recorded in Concordat military archives as the 40-minute miracle. The human fighters, which had seemed like simple patrol craft, suddenly split apart in mid-flight. Each one separated into 3 smaller craft, all operating in perfect coordination. Their numbers had tripled in seconds. "Drone warfare," Stone explained to the stunned admiral. "Why risk pilots when you can have one control multiple craft? Each fighter is actually a carrier for combat drones." The Concordat fleet opened fire, their energy weapons lighting up space with brilliant beams of destructive force. But the human drones moved in ways that defied normal space combat doctrine. They spun, twisted, and phased in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to hit. Meanwhile, the Retribution demonstrated why it earned its name. The battleship's newly revealed weapons included gravity pulse cannons that disrupted ship formations, temporal distortion beams that left Concordat vessels firing at where the human ship had been seconds ago, and swarms of micro-missiles that overwhelmed point defense systems. "Your weapons," Gray whispered, "they're not just advanced. They're impossible." Stone finished. "No, just developed along different lines. When your entire civilization evolves on a world that constantly tries to kill you, you learn to think outside normal boundaries." Within 20 minutes, half the Concordat fleet had been disabled, their weapons systems precisely targeted and neutralized without a single loss of life. The human drones had systematically dismantled their defenses, while the Retribution's main weapons kept the capital ships occupied. "You could have destroyed them all," Gray realized. "Why didn't you?" "Because that's not who we are," Stone replied. "Humans don't fight for destruction. We fight to win, yes, but unnecessary death serves no purpose. Every ship we disable today can be repaired. Every crew member will live to learn from this encounter." The remaining Concordat ships began to retreat, their formations broken, their confidence shattered. The mighty sector fleet had been defeated not by superior numbers or overwhelming firepower, but by technology and tactics they couldn't even comprehend. Stone turned to Gray. "Now, Admiral, shall we discuss proper diplomatic relations? Your High Command seems to be signaling their willingness to negotiate." The Admiral looked at the tactical display, where the Retribution's true form was finally visible, a masterpiece of human engineering and military design. His people had thought themselves the pinnacle of evolution, but in less than a day, a single human ship had proven how wrong they were. "Yes," Gray said quietly. "I believe it's time for the Concordat to learn some humility, and perhaps learn from humanity as well." The aftermath of the battle brought a different kind of tension to the Concordat station. In the main conference room, Captain Stone sat across from not just Admiral Gray, but also 3 members of the Concordat High Command who had arrived via emergency transport. Their fins moved in agitated patterns as they reviewed the battle footage. The oldest among them, Supreme Commander Vale, spoke first. "In all my years, I have never seen such warfare. Your ship, it adapted to everything we tried." "That's because the Retribution was designed to learn," Stone explained. He gestured, and a holographic display appeared above the conference table, a gift of human technology that made the Concordat's crystal displays seem primitive. Every weapon you fired, every tactic you used, was analyzed and countered in real time. The hologram showed the battle from the Retribution's perspective, highlighting how the ship's systems had evolved and adapted throughout the engagement. What impressed the Concordat leaders most wasn't the advanced technology, but the precision. Not a single life had been lost. "Your restraint is puzzling," another commander said. "With such power, most species would have destroyed us completely." Stone's expression remained neutral, but his eyes showed a hint of sadness. "We learned the cost of total warfare long ago, on Earth. Humans fought each other for millennia before reaching the stars. We know exactly what unrestricted war looks like. We chose a different path." Admiral Gray, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. "Tell them what you told me about Earth. They need to understand." The human captain nodded. "Earth shaped us in ways you find hard to comprehend. Our world's gravity crushes most species. Our atmosphere burns their lungs. Our weather can shift from scorching heat to freezing cold in hours. We evolved not just to survive these conditions, but to thrive in them." He continued, "Every piece of human technology comes from this background. We don't build weapons just to destroy. We build them to survive. The Retribution isn't just a battleship. It's a testament to human adaptability." The conference room's lights dimmed slightly as Stone activated another hologram. This one showed Earth, a beautiful but terrifying world of raging oceans, active volcanoes, and extreme environments. The Concordat leaders' fins drew back in shock as they realized what it meant to evolve on such a planet. "This is why we focus on precision and adaptation rather than raw power," Stone explained. "When you grow up on a world that could kill you at any moment, you learn to respect the balance between strength and control." Supreme Commander Vale's fins moved in a pattern that indicated deep thought. "And now you seek diplomatic relations with us, after we attempted to steal your technology and attack your ships." "Of course," Stone replied with a small smile. "Humans understand the value of learning from mistakes, both our own and others. We're offering the Concordat something more valuable than victory in battle. We're offering partnership." He keyed a command into his communicator, and the hologram shifted to show technical schematics. "These are basic shield designs that will help protect your ships from solar radiation. Not military technology, purely defensive. Consider it a gesture of good faith." The Concordat leaders studied the schematics with obvious interest. The designs were elegant in their simplicity, yet far more advanced than their current systems. More importantly, they could see immediate applications beyond military use. "You would share technology with us after we proved ourselves hostile?" one of the commanders asked. The best way to prevent future conflicts is to help each other grow, Stone said. Humanity doesn't want subjects or servants. We want allies who understand us, who can work with us to face the challenges that exist out there in the galaxy. Admiral Gray looked at his superiors. Perhaps we were fortunate today. Instead of finding an enemy to fight, we may have found teachers to learn from. The Supreme Commander's fins moved in agreement. Captain Stone, it seems we have much to discuss about the future of Concordat-human relations. But first, I believe we owe your diplomatic vessel and its crew both an apology and a proper welcome. Stone's expression warmed slightly. That would be an excellent start, Supreme Commander. After all, humans have a saying, the best friendships often start with a misunderstanding. The Concordat leaders didn't fully understand the human gesture of a smile, but they recognized the shift in the room's atmosphere. What had begun as a potential war was transforming into something far more valuable, the beginning of a partnership between two very different species who had much to learn from each other. 3 days after the battle, the Concordat station hummed with unusual activity. The human diplomatic vessel, now fully repaired, prepared for departure. Its crew, finally released and properly welcomed, shared stories with curious Concordat personnel about life on Earth and other human worlds. Captain Stone stood at a viewport alongside Admiral Gray, watching as teams of human and Concordat engineers worked together on installing the new shield systems. The Retribution floated nearby, its dark hull now a source of fascination, rather than fear for the station's inhabitants. Your engineers learned quickly, Stone observed as a Concordat technical team successfully activated a human-designed shield generator. The protective field that sprang to life was noticeably more efficient than the station's original defenses. They're motivated, Gray replied, his fins moving in what Stone had learned was amusement. Yesterday, one of your crew members showed them videos of Earth's weather patterns. After seeing what you call a Category 5 hurricane, they understood why human technology focuses so much on survival. A group of Concordat cadets passed by, their attention fixed on a human Marine, demonstrating the basic functions of powered armor. The Marine had removed his helmet, letting them see that humans weren't so frightening without their advanced equipment. Though the cadets still kept a respectful distance when the Marine showed them how the armor could punch through metal walls. The Supreme Commander's report to the Concordat Council was interesting, Gray continued. He recommended immediate establishment of diplomatic relations and technology exchange programs, though he did note that attempting to steal human technology would be, in his words, suicidally foolish. Stone laughed. Well, at least something good came from this incident. He turned serious. How are your disabled ships doing? All but 3 are fully repaired, Gray said. Your precision in targeting only our weapon systems was remarkable. Though our weapons officers are still trying to understand how your projectiles pass through our shields. That information wasn't included in the technology package we shared, Stone said with a slight smile. Some things should wait until we know each other better. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the station's control center. A new ship had arrived, the official Concordat diplomatic vessel, here to begin formal relations with humanity. Its crystalline hull sparkled magnificently, a deliberate contrast to the Retribution's utilitarian design. Your people do love their dramatic entrances, Stone observed as the diplomatic ship maneuvered into position, its hull catching and refracting starlight in beautiful patterns. Says the man whose first contact with us involved a battleship that could have destroyed our entire fleet. Gray's fins twitched in what Stone now recognized as their equivalent of a smile. The station's main diplomatic reception area had been prepared for the occasion. As they walked there, Stone and Gray passed more signs of the changing relationship between their species. Concordat scientists eagerly discussed theories with human engineers. Security teams from both sides compared notes on tactical procedures. Medical personnel exchanged information about their different biologies. You know, Gray said as they neared the reception area, when that alert first came in, human battleship has entered the sector. I thought it was the beginning of a war. Instead, it may have been the start of the most significant technological and cultural exchange in Concordat history. Stone nodded. Humans have a saying. Sometimes the best way to make a friend is to show them exactly what they're dealing with. We came prepared for war, but hoping for peace. Your people were wise enough to choose the better option. They entered the reception area just as the Concordat diplomatic team arrived. The human diplomatic crew, now properly dressed and prepared, stood ready to begin official negotiations. The room buzzed with an energy that spoke of new beginnings and possibilities. Admiral Gray's fins moved in a pattern of contentment as he watched the two groups begin their formal introductions. Perhaps this is what both our peoples needed. A reminder that strength doesn't always mean destruction, and that different paths of evolution can lead to complementary strengths rather than conflict. Exactly, Stone agreed. And who knows, maybe the next time a human battleship enters a Concordat sector, it'll be for joint military exercises rather than a rescue mission. As the diplomatic teams began their work, the Retribution maintained its vigilant watch over the station. Its dark hull no longer seemed menacing to the Concordat personnel, but rather reassuring. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful ships in the galaxy belonged to those who understood that true strength lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know when not to.